Hello everybody, Mannix here. Big knives and small knives. EDC friendly, more tactical friendly. Harder use, lighter use. Lighter weight, easier to carry, you'll forget it's on you. Heavier, bigger, takes up more space, but it has a lot more capability. May scare the sheeple. Probably will scare the sheeple less. Both big knives and small knives have their advantages and disadvantages. However, the terms big and small are relative. A big knife for me may not be a very big knife for you, and vice versa. A knife I find the perfect size for EDC may be too small for you, or too big for you, too heavy for you, but I may find the weight perfect. It's all subjective, it's all up to interpretation, but the general consensus I have anyway is the bigger knives are going to be better for tactical use, meaning self-defense, maybe defending somebody else, a rescue situation, a very dangerous, life-threatening situation of some kind. The bigger knives, generally speaking, are probably going to do a better job than the smaller knives when it comes to emergency situations like that, survival situations, bushcraft, even camping related stuff. It's not so emergency related. Having more cutting edge, having a stronger locking mechanism, having more to hold on to, having more weight there, more heft. All of these things can be good things, just simply having that extra capability. No, you may not need to always use this 5.5-inch blade every bit of the edge anyway, but you have that capability. It can be used. When you have a smaller knife, you're limited to whatever you have. So funny thing, this Kershaw OD2 right here I'm holding up above pretty much fits the length of the blade of this Cold Steel Voyager XL. And despite having all this extra edge right here, you may only use the entirety of the length of this edge on the Kershaw OD2 on this Cold Steel Voyager XL. So you'd probably just use this portion or so in most tasks in our lives anyway. Opening mail, opening packages, cutting zip ties occasionally, breaking down cardboard so it fits in the recycle bin a little bit easier. Dinky little dumb stupid things we use our knives for all the time. Despite having all this capability and all this handle and all this hardware and all this strength, we just use a little bit of it to make a slice and then we put the knife away. And we carry all that extra weight, all that extra bulk on us, all that extra space it takes up, and we just deal with it just because we want that extra capability in case we needed it, even though most of the time we don't. Smaller knives shave off all of the extra fluff that we generally don't use. They get right to the point. They cut right down to the chase. They weigh us down less. They take up less space. They're faster, typically, just because there's literally less mass we have to move there. They don't need as beefy or as strong of a locking mechanism to lock up properly. They're generally cheaper because there's literally just less material. Short, sweet, to the point. I love small knives for everyday carry. Really cool. And again, funny thing, this is usually just about the amount of edge we use on our massive knives that we carry anyway. Generally speaking, I'm not talking about what it's capable of or emergency situations. I'm talking about everyday carry. That's about how much we're going to use. Probably not too much more than 2 inches of blade or so. It becomes a game of what you want to carry and what you're trying to prepare for, as well as what you are comfortable with, what you find annoying to carry. The larger we go up the scale, the heavier the knife gets, the more space it takes up, the slower it can potentially get to deploy. That's another thing to consider even when we're talking tactical blades. Too much of a good thing, you get it really, really, really big, now it probably will just bog you down at a certain point. Having all this extra edge right here, this 7.5-inch blade, 5.5-inch, that's already a very, very, very long blade for a folding knife, but you step up another 2 inches, and now you have something even more massive. Yeah, I'd want the extra edge. On paper, it sounds like a good idea for tactical use, for defending your life. But when we're getting into deployment, can you safely get this open in time without hurting yourself or somebody else who does not deserve to be injured in that situation? Are you going to be okay carrying all this extra weight, seeing this poking out of your pocket right there? Are you going to draw unwanted attention to yourself with this thing? I don't know. It starts getting out of hand. At a certain point, a knife, even for tactical and defensive use, can get too big. Most of us think the 5.5-inch range is right in that sweet spot. Yeah, it's a very, very large folding knife, but most of us agree that 5.5 inches or so is right in that sweet spot of being just big enough, but not too big. We can deploy it quickly. It's not too heavy to carry. It's a very heavy knife, again, for being a folding knife for carry, but not at that level anyway of the Cold Steel Espada XL. But for everyday cutting tasks, We're probably barely even going to be using this portion up here. That's about it. Or maybe we'll put a zip tie right around here and do a pull cut, but we're only using this little portion or that little portion. It's very rare we're actually taking advantage of that entire blade all the time, 100% of it. Most of the time we don't. Unless we're talking reach in a defensive situation, then yeah, we want a bigger knife. We want more range, so to speak, on our blades. But if we're not looking for trouble, then this just kind of becomes a hindrance, a nuisance, having that extra steel, having that extra weight, taking up more space. We'd rather just get right down to the chase. And now we get into the whole EDC realm of things. This is what I would consider a medium-size folder, the CJRB Pyrite. Certainly a lot more to hold on to than that Kershaw OD2 right there, but it's still not nearly to the length of the XL Cold Steels. Opens up nice and fast. We can get a more full grip on here, a little bit more secure, a little bit more handle to hold on to. We have more options to hold this in. It's a good compromise, and we still have a good amount of cutting edge right there, meaning if a defensive situation did come up, I'd be more comfortable with this thing than something that small. Granted, I'm adding just a little bit of extra weight, a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit more scarier for the sheeple, possibly, but it's a very good compromise. A medium-sized folder is a good compromise between EDC and tactical use, which is why I think they're the most popular, if I had to guess. If that's not enough for you, you can step up just an inch or two in blade. This is a little bit above a 4-inch blade on this Spyderco Resilience, lightweight. I don't want to step up to the 5.5-inch blades, but I do want something for tactical use. That's when you might grab something like this. Very, very long blade, though. Again, for most everyday carry tasks, even opening packages and things like that, that's a lot. There's a lot of cutting edge right there. Is it worth carrying all that extra weight? Having all that extra space being taken up in your pocket or on your person? That big old shiny gleaming blade taking up a lot of space in the air for people to see. Even if it's black to gold, still a large blade. Maybe you don't want people seeing it. Maybe you don't want people hearing your knife. Maybe you want it to be as covert and as quiet and secure as possible. Less of a liability. These smaller knives are less likely to probably snag onto things and fall out of your pocket. Less liabilities with the smaller knives, perhaps. Legalities is another thing. Some places don't allow you to carry knives above certain lengths or having the blades at certain lengths. That's another advantage to most smaller knives. However, the idea I always subscribe to is better to have too much knife than not enough. If I was in a very dire situation, I'd rather have too much cutting edge than not enough. If I was in a situation where I needed more cutting edge, I wanted more reach for something, there's a task I had to get done as quickly as possible, don't have time to improvise a weapon or anything like that, or a tool, yeah, I'd rather take this extra cumbersome knife and use it if it's all I had, because let's say if I only needed 4 inches, well, I have 4 inches on this 7.5-inch blade. I do not have 4 inches on a 2-inch blade. Another advantage for the larger folding knives. You got to find that perfect porridge, that perfect sweet spot for you. Again, medium to, I would say medium larger folders are probably the most popular because of that very reason. You don't want something so big and so heavy that's going to bog you down and draw suspicion and be cumbersome and maybe be obnoxious, but you want as much edge as possible that you can legally carry, that you can comfortably carry. That's why medium is usually what most people like the most. And then you have dudes who do a little bit of both. They'll carry an XL size folder on them as their tactical blade, maybe in their back pocket, and then they'll carry a small, dinky, tiny little knife that they would never use for tactical use in their most easily accessible area that they'll be taking out for everyday carry tasks. That's another option. But now you got 2 knives, not 1. It could be another thing to worry about. Not sure. There's advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons to all of these different situations. Just wanted to make this video to ask you, what do you carry? What would you say is about the size of knife or size of blade that you normally find on your person? Do you carry multiple blades? You prefer the small knives, or do you prefer the big knives regardless? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe, hit that little bell notification if you do not want to miss weekly knife and gun videos. Mannix out.